First of all, it's really nice to see friends, old and new. Some getting very old like me, which is also comforting for me. I've been in this college now the best part of 30 years, and I would say that every year it changes. It's like a new job every year. But for a big chunk of that time, I've had the pleasure of working on the projects with the Jack Petchey Foundation. Jack Petchey's CBE has for many years had a vision to enable young people to make the most of opportunities and to increase their self-esteem. Throughout its history, his foundation has provided support for thousands of organisations that work with young people in London and Essex. The dedication of this lecture theatre to him looks to honour the impact Jack's foundation has had on youth work and youth workers. The Foundation's funding support for the college started in 2001. I recall the first face-to-face experience the college had with Jack. It came when he asked me over to Ilford for a bite to eat. This was for a boy who used to clean cars for Jack. So you can imagine that I was not only honoured, I was a bit scared. I got to Ilford and I went up to the boardroom and Jack said to me, "Help yourself." And there was this boardroom table literally covered with sandwiches and fruit. There was two of us in the room. It looked like a banquet for dozens. So between sandwiches and bananas, I must have said something right, because since that first generous encounter, this institution has received £350,000 in funding. A huge amount for an institution of this size. And this has enabled us to maintain our unique position as the only specialist youth work, further and higher education college in the UK. It has also meant that unlike any of our competitors, most of the people who work in this building can put a student's face to a name and a student's name to a face. We practice what we preach. Of course, the college is not alone in experiencing the Foundation's munificence. More than 2,000 schools, clubs, youth and uniformed organisations throughout London and Essex are now supported by the Jack Petchey Foundation, that has awarded grants of £75 million since its inception. All this really began well before the Foundation's 30 years ago. The seeds of this achievement were sown and grew out of a particular place and time. The wider context of the Jack Petchey Foundation is its pedigree. During the first couple of decades of the 20th century, the Port of London was in the throes of a new buoyancy. It was at its busiest ever. This confidence reached its zenith with the opening of the King George V dock, just down Freemasons Road, about a 7-minute walk, I think. This happened in 1925, and this together with the Royal Albert and Victoria docks made the Royal Docks the largest area of enclosed water in the world. Now that same year was the birth of the Woodcraft Folk. This organisation was a direct antecedent of an organisation called the Kindred of Kibo Kift, an organisation led by the Scout Commissioner for Woodcraft and Camping, John Hargreave. He's the bloke with a hoodie way back then, one of the first hoodies. The Woodcraft Folk was established by Leslie Paul, that's the guy down in the corner there, after the South London cooperative groups challenged Hargreave's authoritarian tendencies over his refusal to recognise a group called the Broccoli Thing. Quite a name for that then, the Broccoli Thing. What should we call ourselves? Let's call ourselves the Broccoli Thing. And anyway, the Woodcraft Folk broke away from the Kindred. In its early years, the Woodcraft Folk were very similar to the Kibo Kift, having a strong, what they called pagan influence, which today we would recognise as green issues. It had an anti-capitalist emphasis, but gradually it developed a distinct ethos. And the official slogan of the Woodcraft Folk, which remains today, is "Span the world with friendship." And it's traditionally committed to education for social change. So, also in 1925, some 34 years after Mansfield House was established as an institution that was to provide community activities and social support for Canning Town and Plaistow up to the present day. It's quite interesting to look at that. I don't know if you can see this, but some of the things that were going on there is the people of many countries. There was a mock parliament. There was folk dancing, open support programme, study of local government. All this happening just down the road in Canning Town, and I dare say some of you are local will recognise the building. The warden in 1925 of Mansfield House said, "Mansfield House exists to create and preserve among its members a certain ideal that a man should be and how he should be and how he can behave if he can." I think they're kind of nice words. To be all you can be. All in all, you can perhaps tell this was quite a time for young people, economic and social development in East London. Many of the ideas that youth workers look to put into action now were beginning to take shape then. It was at this moment and this place that Jack Petchey was born, not too far from Plaistow Station Underground. And Jack Petchey is a well-known figure on a national and international level. His philanthropic activities and the concomitant beneficence are more than renowned, they are in fact legendary. His imagination and innovative skills, achievements and general enterprise as a business person are acknowledged throughout the entrepreneurial realm. However, in this area, where he was born and grew up, and started to make a living for himself out of his own initiative and sheer hard work, he has a unique profile. Remains one of us. He's the boy done good. But the good that Jack has done, and still is doing, is more than a tale of graft and swiftness of action and thought. Becoming Jack has been a path of purpose, a life with direction. It is this life of this extraordinary, ordinary man, the context he arose out of and helped to define, that we will be not acknowledging here today, through the lens of the place that gave him to the world and the times that shaped him. This is a brief homily, but I hope it gives you a sense of how Jack influenced his world and to some extent is a product of the same. Work targeting young people, although not what we might today call youth work, have been going on in the Docklands for many decades. Charles Dickens, visiting Canning Town in 1857, reported, "Canning Town is the child of the Victoria Docks. The condition of this place and its neighbourhood prevent the steadier class of mechanics from residing in it." I say, if you were not poor, you wouldn't live there. Many select such a dwelling place because they are already debased, below the point of enmity to filth. Poorer labourers live here because they cannot afford to become further debased. So this was about as low as you could go, this neck of the woods. 2 years before Jack was born, it seems life was still a bit of a struggle for most people who lived in this area. Writer Elsie Oxenham, visiting the YMCA Red Triangle Club in Plaistow, wrote about crowded streets, unemployed men standing at corners, squalid houses, mud, dirt and bustle. And the YMCA opened on the 4th of June 1921. It was opened by the local Labour MP, Will Fawn, and the King and Queen visited the next day. It was described as a palace, a great white building, with a marble tablet at the top of the staircase, proclaiming it as a memorial for the men of this district who had fallen in the Great War. Facilities included a cafe, a gymnasium, a cinema, a theatre, billiard rooms, a lounge and reading rooms for girls and boys, and a swimming pool. So there was a lot happening in youth work. That seems already a lot. Mansfield House, and then the YMCA. And nearly 4 decades on from Dickinson's brief sojourn in our manor, the foundation of what was to become to known as the Docklands Settlements and Malvern College clubs were laid. Well, they were formally constituted in 1923. Docklands Settlement number 1 was in Canning Town. It was the headquarters of an organisation which in Jack's time, by the time he was 12 years old, had 6 branches in the London area and elsewhere. At Canning Town, between 1924 and 1929, there were new club rooms, another gymnasium, a dance hall, a theatre and swimming baths, all built. Just round the corner from here, of what was to become the Mayflower Centre. In 1957, the former England cricket captain, the Reverend David Shepherd, as warden, reconstituted Docklands Settlement into the Mayflower Family Centre. And you can get there in about 10 minutes if you want to take a slow walk. While working there, he took a sabbatical to join the England tour of Australia in 1962-1963. And in 1969, he became the Bishop of Woolwich. David was succeeded by Roger Sainsbury, who became the Bishop of Barking. It was at the Mayflower, working under the direction of Sainsbury, that I started my own career in youth work. Roger became the chair of the National Youth Agency, and he'll be carrying the torch come the Olympics this year. So, as you can see, can anyone tell me, there's a picture of Jack there, there's a prize for the first person to tell a fantastic prize.
Not you.
I can tell.
As you might be beginning to understand, it has been hard for most of the last century to grow up in this part of London and not be touched by the influence of youth work. Jack Petchey, as a scout, was a fine exemplar of this. Like so many other East End boys of his generation, his boyhood was seemingly joined to doing his bit in the Second World War. It seems the leadership qualities he may have honed in his scouting came to the fore. He rose to the rank of Chief Petty Officer in the Fleet Air Arm. Alongside the RAF, the FAA foiled Nazi ambitions to dominate British skies. If they had dominated British skies, that would have made way for Operation Sea Lion, Hitler's planned invasion of Britain. Without the likes of Jack, there would not have just been a Battle of Britain. There would have been a Battle of London. There would have been a Battle of Cardiff. There would have been a Battle of Glasgow. There would have been a Battle of Belfast. These isles were imbrued with a spirit of resistance to the tyranny of fascism. That would have meant a price of millions of lives would have to be paid, as well as the risk of extending racist murder and genocide across the full extent of Europe and North Africa. And so, again, fighting against racism, fighting for equality, is nothing new, ladies and gentlemen. At the very least, there would have been much more destruction than we saw with the 40,000 civilian deaths. Half of them in London, most of them around the Dockland area, and the countless thousand injured or maimed and mentally scarred by the Blitz. In London alone, more than 1 million homes were destroyed and damaged. That meant around half the families in the capital were affected. A 10-minute stroll from the college, my dad's family home in Churchill Road, Custom House, it was destroyed completely. Luckily, while my grandfather was fighting in Norway, and my dad and my grandmother were hot picking in Kent. Otherwise, you wouldn't be getting this lecture in. But I wish it good luck by the end of it. However, with Grandad fighting in Norway, there was a certain amount of payback, because on the 30th of March 1944, HMS Furious and HMS Victorious of the Home Fleet sailed out of Scapa Flow in the company